Hello, everyone. You are listening to Kingdom Stories, where we tell stories of hope and power from the lives of everyday Christians just like you and me. It's my hope that these stories encourage you in your walk with the Lord and remind you weekly about how awesome our God is. Hey, everybody, I'm here with my sister MJ from church. MJ, say hi.
Hey guys.
All right, MJ, so you want to start off by giving us a little bit of a brief intro on your background, where you come from, etc.
I'm from the Bay Area. Grew up in Oakland. I didn't really grow up in the church, but I did grow up having somewhat of a relationship with Christ. But it was always very diluted, I would say, up
Hmm.
until maybe like 4 years ago. Even from a really young age, I really was in tune with the Holy Spirit, but I didn't go to church regularly. I didn't have the community or really any good examples of theological teachings. I just had the Bible and the Spirit and myself, and that was it. I did go to church for a short period of time, but then I left church, obviously. And there's even a period of time where I was just really angry with God for allowing me to feel the emptiness that I felt, or hardships that he allowed in my life. I was at a point where my family unit had just very quickly dissolved. I was living with a boyfriend at the time, and he broke up with me, a lot of it because of all of the stress I was feeling from family issues. And so, long story short, I didn't have any family to go to live with. I had to move out of where I was living with my boyfriend. I didn't really feel like I had anything to comfort me, but I still felt comforted. And so I kind of leaned into that feeling of that there's nothing here to comfort me, but there's still something comforting me. Like, what is this? And that kind of pulled me back into wanting to go deeper with my relationship with God. Between the ages of 16 to about 20, which is when I had that comforting feeling, I definitely had some resentment. I definitely still believed in God, and I still trusted him to a certain extent, but there was just a lot of resentment or anger, why is this happening,
So where did that take you? Can you give us a description of some of the darkness you experienced?
Yeah, so I think I was lacking a lot of the things kids need. I didn't have the most stable home environment. I didn't quite feel a lot of love, and so I was seeking that fulfillment. And then when I wasn't seeking the fulfillment, I was just seeking to be numb from
Mm.
everything. So what that led to was a lot of promiscuity, alcohol abuse, getting into a lot of things that I shouldn't be getting into, which just led to more shame. So then it turned into a spiral of oh, I'm so ashamed of doing that thing when I was drunk, so I need to numb myself by getting drunk again.
Wow.
Type of deal, just a constant cycle of this just darkness and shame. Not one thing specifically, but like I said, just leading up to that point where I guess I had put all my eggs in one basket with that boyfriend to a certain extent. I
Mm.
was like, oh well, this kind of feels like love, you know. So I think that is kind of there's a lot of things that led up to that, but that was just the breaking point of okay, this is over. What now?
Hmm. So when he broke up with you, what did you have? Because you said you didn't have anything. Were you on the streets, or what happened there?
So actually, no, I was very gracefully offered a place to stay in a friend's parents' basement. So that was really awesome. It was a way that God just, unexpectedly provided for me. So I had a little trundle bed in a basement. It was an interesting year of my life,
Wow.
but it was definitely a situation that just you know, like at least I have this trundle bed in this basement, you know, like it really opened my eyes to all the ways that like while I had felt like God was taking everything from me, he was really giving me the things I needed and just like equipping me to be closer to him.
Removing all the distractions between you and him.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Yeah, it's crazy how he does that sometimes, and you feel like you're hitting rock bottom, but he's just pulling away everything else.
Yeah.
So can you kind of describe for us a little bit, kind of go into detail on that transition period from, like, you had no hope, but you felt comforted, and then you said this comfort just like stayed in your heart even when there was no reason for it. Can you give us a little bit of the background, maybe some things you tried trying to figure that out? Like what happened with that? Give us some details.
To be honest, it was kind of just a supernatural experience for me. I was just in a place where, you know, like I said, I just felt comfort when I felt like I lost everything. And I was just in tears of like pain, but also joy of like, where is this comfort coming from? And so I just prayed. And I was just like, this is, in that moment of me just like praying, I was like, I just knew like, this is the Spirit, this is God comforting me and like calling me back to him. Immediately after that, I called another, she's actually my youth leader when I went to church in middle school for a little while. She goes to the movement as well, Monica. And I was just like, hey, I know you've been inviting me to this church for a while, and I've been turning you down for a while. But I think I'm finally just ready to just try it out. And so I went with her to the movement, and the sermon that Pastor Ed was preaching that day was about parental relationships and just forgiveness. And while I wasn't ready to forgive yet, I knew it was something I had to do. And I was really convicted by that message that like this is an area where I need to grow, and I don't have that forgiveness yet, but I know it's coming. It started really small, and it started with myself. It started with God just convicting me of my sins and me changing those sins. And slowly I was partying less and serving more and, you know, not hanging out with the friends I only hung out with to do things we shouldn't be doing, and starting to hang out with church community more.
You can say drugs. That's okay.
Drugs, you know? So not hanging out with those friends who I didn't trust with. Like, you know, just starting to really lean into like the church community more and leaning into God more and learning to forgive myself for those sins, learning to accept myself despite those sins. So all of that happened, and, you know, getting this peace within myself was like the first step. And then it started small with just allowing certain situations back into my life. I think the biggest one would be my dad. There's a lot of bad blood there on both sides. I think there were some things he needed to forgive me for as well. I think he was still a little bit more angry than I was at that time. And so it just started with like just slowly letting him back in, and then letting him be angry, and then just trying to like not be angry myself. And then, yeah, just, you know, continuing to pray about it and read the Bible and just trying to extend that forgiveness that I had felt from God that allowed me to forgive myself to my dad. And I think that helped both of us. I think his anger eased so much. My anger eased. And there are still days where I think there are certain insecurities about our relationship, but compared to I couldn't even talk to him, to now he often stays with me and like we get along great. Like he has a room at my apartment for commuting type of deal. So it's just been like a really miraculous journey of, oh, okay, like we can just sit and hang out now. Just something
Wow.
we didn't do from, I don't know, as long as I can remember.
Wow. So you went from not on speaking terms to on able to stay under the same roof and enjoy each other's company terms.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's powerful right there.
Another thing I think would just be marriage. You know, I think because of the relational issues within my family, I've always had these huge insecurities around marriage, to the point where it became just not even an insecurity, but just something I was like disgusted by. It's like, why would you even waste your time on that?
Wow.
And, you know, of course, God just slowly but surely changed my heart and, like, just, you know, led me to see, like, well, marriage isn't a thing that's about you. It's a thing that's about God. So now I'm married.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was one thing that was just, even now, I'm like, wait, really? Like, did that happen? How did that happen?
Yeah.
But yeah, just realizing it's more so for his glory. All of the things that I thought I was mad at God for were really just like preparing me to be better in serving him. You know, stripping all the comforts away from me so that I had to go to him for comfort, bringing me closer to him.
So what would you say is a takeaway or a lesson you'd want people to learn from your story?
I would say just, never say never, because obviously miraculous things can happen. But also, I think the biggest thing for me is when the really hard things happen, go to God first. Your feelings are valid and there's something you need to process, but go to God first and see where it's leading you in your relationship with God. Because when you're focusing so much on like, well, I feel this way, it's blinding you from seeing like the goodness that God is providing for you.
It's a good lesson. It's a good takeaway. Is there anything else you'd want to throw in there? Anything else you want to add to your testimony here before we call it quits?
No, I think I fleshed through it.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us and sharing your testimony with us. If you liked the story today, please don't hesitate to spread the love. Share it, like it, and subscribe to hear more. If you want to share a story from your life about an encounter with God, please don't hesitate to email me at jesse@newawakeningministries.org. Stay safe and remember, the kingdom is among us.